can really be accused of having a monopoly on extremism. Though indeed, in certain periods, at certain times, one faith seems to produce more extremist acts than another. But in the balance, we don't really see any particular faith having a monopoly on extremism. So in contemporary times, there are Jewish religious extremists, there are Christian religious extremists, and there are Muslim religious extremists.
Oh shit.
Here's an example.
What? Just does benching.
In medieval Christian Europe, over 50,000 women were burned alive on the charge that they were witches. Now, I've never seen anyone burned alive. I've never seen anything burned alive, actually.
This is an animation.
Let alone a human being. But I certainly can't imagine a more cruel and hideous death.
What the fuck? Why?
I mean, you're not even going to die from the smoke inhalation. You're going to die from the flames. Right? Some of the accused women that were burned alive were reported not even to know what witchcraft was, let alone to practice it. And many were mercilessly tortured in order to procure confessions of guilt. Is this an example of religious extremism? Well, while we may find this to be an incredibly sickening act, it is in fact not actually the case of religious extremism, because it was so common a practice in medieval Europe that we would call it part of a normative religious tradition of the time, in a sense a sacrifice. On the other hand, an incident like this totally would be considered extremist today, certainly in Canada and in America. Now, just because a religious act like this is not considered extremist does not make it right. So that's another distinction we need to think about. But it underscores the degree to which religious extremism lies in part in one's particular position and value system within a given community. So you'll note that one of the common threads that tends to unite religious extremism is the belief that God has communicated directly to you, either through religious texts or religious leaders, or literally a kind of one-to-one communication. Now, for these kinds of religious extremists, once God has made a command known, you must obey, you must follow. So, present day, consider the extremist Christian church of the Phelps family. I don't know if any of you know the Phelps. I love the Phelps, the Westboro Baptist Church of Kansas. This is a very extreme case of the divine control thesis. So this family, present day, created a congregation. Most of the members of the congregation are extended family. And the congregation exists around the belief that the U.S. has become a nation of sinners bound for hell. And that such events like 9/11, the killing of troops in Iraq, AIDS, earthquakes, the death of Boy Scouts, the Virginia Tech mass killings, all of these things are acts of retribution caused by a raging and angry God. But they claim that no sin is greater and in need of more immediate attention than that of homosexuality. In fact, the citizens of the US and Canada and many other nations around the world are going to hell precisely because they in some way protect homosexuals through legislation, through culture, what have you. So as an example, the Ellen DeGeneres show is seen as a terribly hateful anti-God television show because here we're giving all this media attention, a bully pulpit, if you will, to a lesbian. So these religious extremists insist that their values are decreed by God and that anyone who does not follow those beliefs will burn in hell. They believe that all bad things that befall us are caused by God, i.e. the divine control thesis. And that most of these things, most of these bad things that happen to us are caused for the sins of a sexually perverted nation.
Oh shit.
So they celebrate the death of soldiers who return from war in body bags. And they picket the funerals of dead soldiers with signs that say, God hates fags. I don't know if any of you have seen this on the news. And they believe that anyone who has even a young child that dies, if you have a young child that dies for any reason, of cancer or a car accident or whatever bad thing happened, that it ultimately that represents the act of God, and that child in some way was a sinner. Okay, so here you have, as in the case of many acts of religious extremism, a kind of very literal reading of the Bible. The Bible is literally the Word of God and must be followed as such. So each word in the Bible is a direct communication of God. Also note the divine control pieces here, where an angry God strikes down the wicked and sinful with death, disease, and natural disasters. So I've got a few clips of the films that I'd like to show you.